Hello, this is Steve Whigham, and welcome to lesson 5 of Living in Light of Man's Chief End. We're going to look at my chief end and my choices, work and play. Looking forward to talking to you about this. This has been one of those conversations that I've been having with several of my friends and over the last few weeks, and it has been really exciting to talk it through. A lot of things I've needed to reorient in my own life, so I'm hoping some of this will be beneficial to you as well as we talk about some of these issues together. As you know, if you've been paying attention to the series in general, we've been talking about quite a few things. We've gone through the first part of the last 4 weeks about my chief end and my existence. Now we're in the part 2, my chief end and my choices, and the first of these, of course, is work and play, which we'll be talking about today. And then, of course, part 3 is about my relationships, and also part 4 is my chief end and a fallen world. And if you remember from all of our conversations to this point, that man's chief end we're taking from the Westminster Confession of Faith's larger catechism. The very first question is, what is man's chief end? And it's glorifying God and enjoying Him forever. Is a brief summary of what that answer was. And so we've been really investigating what that means, and then also how it will apply to our lives. And so that's really the discussion we're going to have today, as it pertains to work and play. The first question I would like to pose to you is a question that's always been very interesting to me and a little bit troubling, is when I look into the life of the American church, I find this to be a problem for us, is that, where's the joy? We seem to have a heaviness about us overall, and there seems to be a deep, I wouldn't say sourness, but just kind of a heavy, almost a rueful kind of a feeling about what we're all about and what we're trying to do, and there seems to be a constant sense of struggle and somberness into the way we worship and the way we relate to each other. And is this what really God wanted us to be a constant state of despair and frustration and maybe even have a little bit of a negativity? And of course, this is not a universal trait of all churches. There's some churches that are just vibrant and on fire and having a great time. And so I'm not wanting to make this a broad statement across all of American Christianity, but we see quite a bit of churches that are, the joy just doesn't seem to be there in nearly as much as it should. And I think it really has a lot to do with our relationship with our chief end, is that we've kind of lost sight of that, and we've looked at other things to bring us joy. And so we're going to look at work and play and see how that pertains to our chief end and where the joy of living comes from. What's really kind of fascinating is a statistic that I discovered over the last few years, was that psychologists have noticed that when children play, there's a lot of laughter. And they find out that children actually laugh about 400 times per day. But for many of us adults, I'm one of those, is that we only laugh maybe about 12 times a day. That's kind of our average. And you think about that, and it's really kind of a stark reality. Of course, as you get older, there's a lot more stress and strain of being an adult, a lot more responsibility and a lot more seriousness that we have to bring to life. But, this stark of a contrast between what children experience in life and what adults do, I don't know if really that's all that great of a statistic that really comforts me, or that I can rationalize without much double clutching. It seems like we may be not laughing nearly enough as adults. Maybe we just take ourselves way too seriously, and the problems that we face are way too seriously. And it also could very well be that we're just not focused on the right things. That's leading us to a lot of seriousness that doesn't necessarily need to be there. And that's really the point of our conversation today. So we're going to look at work and play and its particularities. There's a lot of interesting parallels between these two, and sometimes you think, well, they seem to be almost diametrically opposite, but they really are not. And I did not realize this until I really started paying attention to what really happens when we're working, what really happens when we're playing. And so we're going to kind of dive into this and realize that these two activities of our lives inform each other and are very similar in their technique of actually going about working, going about playing. So hold on tight to that thought as we start to really play with this idea. This all came about a few years back when I was actually up in Green Bay, Wisconsin, going to a Packers football game. It happened to be a Sunday afternoon game, and I was with a good friend of mine who was actually a believer as well, and we were just having a great time. It was the Packers were winning, of course, and we were all excited. The home team was really doing well, and everybody was jumping up and down, having a great time. And I remember my friend leaning over to me and says, "Should I feel guilty that I'm having so much of a good time?" And I started thinking about, wow, I hadn't really had a chance to really just sit back and absorb this. But I started asking the question during that game is, what does God feel when he sees this? On a Sunday afternoon, all these people standing up, cheering, laughing, shouting, high-fiving each other and all this kind of stuff. What does he see and how does he feel? And at first, I thought maybe he saw us as being way too cavalier with our time, and maybe even being a little bit disrespectful of the Sabbath by doing this. And so I was really curious about this as a thought. And from that, a lot of feelings and a lot of thinking started coming about from trying to see if I can answer this question. What does God see, or feel when he sees activities like this in our lives? And I've come to the conclusion that maybe I'm taking life a little too seriously, and God's probably saying, "Steve, lighten up. I made you a material person in a material world, and that was before the fall. And I want you to enjoy the material world." And that was a hard thing for me to accept, because I feel like since this is not a productive time of out there cheering on a football team, could this possibly be a problematic thing for me to be doing? And so that was a struggle, and it still haunts me a little bit to this day. But one thing we do know, if we bring it all the way back to the very beginning of the scriptures, we were designed to work. And in Genesis 2, even before the fall, God said this: "The Lord God took the man and put him in the Garden of Eden to work it and keep it." It was his intention all along for us to work. And this is not a result of the curse, but work is actually pre-curse, design on God's part. So this isn't something to punish us in order for us to work. If you look at it from God's point of view, and the way he set up the Garden of Eden, and even the way we see working out in our lives today, is that work really is God's invitation to us to engage with life. And that's really important for us to understand, is that this is intentional for us to not just become so self-absorbed and so self-centered, that work is where we step out into the world, into nature, and into other people's lives, and help and do things that are productive. And he's designed us for that being an incredibly deep need for us. And so this is something that's important for us to understand, is that it is our chance to engage with life. We need to look at work that way. A lot of times we have been taught that work is only a means to be able to get a paycheck in order to be able to make my life more comfortable. But really, we need to recalibrate work into something much more strong and beneficial that fits better with the way God had designed things all along. And I think this is a good way of looking at it. And if you've been in any of our conversations, we've been discussing quite a few things about how God made us. And I think we can come to some pretty good conclusions here about what my best work is as I'm going out in life, doing the things that I do, whether it's in service of the church itself or whether it's just out there to make a living. My best work really is the intersection of four big principles. One of them is my giftedness. God has given us all gifts that make us special. That some of us are extroverts and are really good at engaging people. Some people are introverts and are really good at analyzing and thinking of processes and solutions. Other people are very good at being able to sense people's needs. There's all kinds of different giftedness that's out there. And my giftedness cannot be it alone. Actually, I need to also combine it with my passion. My passion is what really just gets me excited every day. And the passion is a important part of helping me take my giftedness and really direct it specifically at things that really are important to me. But also, my best work is not just those two things, my giftedness and my passion. It also must be in the service of others. This is where where we go wrong a lot in our thinking, is that we just think it's all about just me getting a paycheck and doing the work I want to do. But it needs to be helping others. And the fourth dimension has to do with arete, which is Aristotle's fancy word for excellence. doing it well. And those four things are really critical for my best work to come out of me. There's been some studies that have been done recently, and one of the more striking ones that was done was an international study done about 8 years ago, where they interviewed over 2 million people and that were working, and they found out in that study that 1 out of 5 people actually are working in the realm of their talents or their giftedness or their passions. And it means that 4 out of 5 of us who are working are very ill-fitted for the jobs we're trying to do. That's why our work sometimes feels so laborious and so heavy for us. And so you can find out about that study if you go to strengthsfinders.com. It will tell you a little bit about what they learned. And it's really a powerful and potent reminder of how critical these 4 things are for my best work. We see that also in Ecclesiastes. I recommend reading the whole book of Ecclesiastes. It's a pretty amazing book. It will definitely center you and give you more of a well-rounded and balanced view of life. But there's one verse that's very critical to our conversation, and it's this one. There is nothing better for a person than that he should eat and drink and find enjoyment in his toil. This also I saw is from the hand of God. This tells us that we should find joy. Our passion should be there. But that also, and we find in other parts of the scripture, if it's actually centered on the things that are giftedness, we find a really amazing thing happening. We mix that in with a little bit of excellence and directing it towards others, we find out that our work really starts to sparkle and really starts to take on meaning. Confucius, or Kongzi, as they say in China, says something wonderful. You probably heard this many times over, but it's just great to be reminded of it. Confucius once said, "Choose a job you love, and you will never have to work a day in your life." But isn't that true? For those of us who have had that ability to experience work and find a job that just absolutely, really just gets us fully engaged, and we just love doing it, it's no longer work. It feels like play. Steve Jobs actually went as far as to say this. He said, "Your work is going to fill a large part of your life. And the only way to be truly satisfied is to do what you believe is great work." Talking about the arte. "And the only way to do great work is to love what you do." That's the passions. "If you haven't found it yet, keep looking, don't settle. As with all matters of the heart, you'll know it when you find it." Those are actually wise words from Steve Jobs, and I think that it actually echoes a lot of the things that we find out in the scriptures, what God's trying to tell us about our own work. And you look at work and play together. Play really is really work, just with a different dimension. We actually, in play, we usually have a challenge in front of us. I'm talking about I'm not talking about like sitting in your back hammock or having a cup of coffee on your back deck or going and sitting in the woods and just contemplating. That's more of recreation. I'm talking about play is actually doing things that are either physically or mentally stimulating, like playing basketball or playing a good board game or those kinds of things. Work and play, though, are really two sides of the same coin. You bring your creativity, your curiosity, your commitment to a goal, your energy, your passion, everything to it in order for it to work. And so work and play is just really fascinating how closely aligned they are in the types of energy and types of mental work mental energy we put forward is very similar. And so it's really important for us to realize that. The difference is sometimes work becomes work because we have people that expect things from us, and they are wanting to get something out of what we do, and play is just for the sheer enjoyment of doing those things. But you can see that actually I can do anything in the mindset of work or play. And I remember I'm a writer by trade. And sometimes when I write for my own self, I enjoy it very much. It's more like play. It just seems to be just a delightful thing just to write things down and to express ideas in creative ways. But when somebody pays me for it, all of a sudden it turns into work. I start to feel there seems to be a grudge that gets attached to the work and a little bit of a reluctance, which is bizarre for me. I think this really has to do more with our culture than it really does have with work itself, is that we have been taught the importance of the ethics of work. And so the strong work ethic that we carry with us causes us to actually burden our work with a lot of extra things that maybe it doesn't need. So it's really important for us to remember these things. Our work and play is at its worst in our lives when it's solely to benefit ourselves. This is when you find your work to become very unsatisfying, even your play. When it's all about you and just your own enjoyment, this is when you can hurt relationships, when you can do things that are damaging to other people, when it's just all about you and your self-fulfillment. Both of these work and play actually can turn against us and work against our own spiritual growth and our own engagement with the world when we turn it just for our own benefit. But it's at its best in our lives when it's aimed at benefiting others. Even in our play, when we're actually there to enjoy the day with people and to bring joy to them and to have fun with them and to work with people and to benefit them and make them stronger and to make them more successful, all these things have the same kind of code to them. And that's when work and play becomes really, really a powerful thing. And I think this really goes very closely into what Jesus has always been telling us about really living outside of ourselves as opposed to living for ourselves. Our culture in America has a tendency for us to think that work is all about us and that we should be getting it for our paycheck, and I do this in order to make my own self-benefit. And also even our play, it's all about me and becoming stronger and becoming better and maybe more competitive and those kinds of things and making my life more fulfilled. But I think it's best when it's turned back outside and we find ways of making work and play about other people and making their lives better. That's when we find the most joy and when life really starts to make a lot of sense for us. And that really kind of goes right into the whole chief end of man of glorifying God and enjoying Him forever. Glorifying God is showing God's glory into the world, and by our doing things for others, we let them see what true selflessness is, which is the very trait of God. And enjoying Him forever, we get to enjoy the people He loves. And that's really kind of the cool thing. So, I like what Plato once said. I may be taking this way out of context. If you guys are, deep readers of Plato, you may say, well, you're kind of stretching this a little bit, but I love this little phrase, life must be lived as play. Plato said that, and I think there's good reason to believe that he actually meant this in exactly the terms in which we see it, but that's just me. But really, we should be able to recategorize everything as joy and as curiosity and as fun if we just really look at it from that point of view. A lot of times our point of view is only about, well, I got to do this in order to make a paycheck or to be successful or advance my career or whatever. That's when life is lived as work. But life lived as play is I get to hang out with people, do fun things, learn new things, try new things, challenge myself. That's what play is all about. And so I like what Plato had to say there. And one last thought we need to stop with before we finish up this conversation is that working and playing with mindfulness is that we're not doing this just in some kind of vacuum. It's really in a bigger story altogether. And Colossians 3 tries to tell us to remember that. And in the verse it says, and whatever you do, in word or deed, do everything in the name of the Lord Jesus, giving thanks to God the Father through Him. And what that really means, I think, is that as we go about singing, playing, working, interacting with other people, see everything from God's point of view, is that the people that we're staring in there, looking at in our play and in our work are special creations of His, and He loves them very much. And we do these things in order to really bring thankfulness and goodness to them and to God through the things that we do every day. And I think that's really a beautiful, beautiful thing for us to remember. It's very easy not to think this way, that the work I do is just more of an obligation, and that the play I'm doing is really just about my own fulfillment, and we lose sight of it, and it loses its special nature in our lives. And it's hard to glorify God and enjoy Him forever when we are looking at things very selfishly. So I guess we need to work and play with a little bit more mindfulness of who God is and what's out there in front of us. So our goal, as we've been talking about, is the blessed life, the flourishing life. And makarios is the word in Greek that we have been leaning upon. It's the word that's used in Matthew and the Beatitudes, When it said, blessed are the poor, and blessed are those who mourn, and blessed are the meek, that's a state of being, not necessarily something that is a promise of future blessing. You are blessed when you are poor in spirit. You are blessed when you are mourning. You are blessed when you are meek. You are blessed with those when you do hunger and thirst for righteousness. That is the point of flourishing. It's hard for us as American Christians especially to appreciate that some of our flourishing is actually in the moment, not necessarily as something as a reward for my sacrifice along the way. And I know that sometimes these verses have a way of being twisted to think that these are, you will be blessed if you are. No, you are blessed when you are. And that's a major change in the way we should think about that word makarios. So actually, the life we live, the dailiness of it, the people we see every day, this is where the joy is. This is where the glory is. And if we can find those and re-understand those in the right light, I think it really will help make our Christian life even much more vibrant. So I hope this has been helpful to you. This has been a great little conversation for me, and it's a shorter one, which is good. Good to be short. But I think that most of them will be fairly short from this point forward, mainly just because I want to get just the essence of the argument in front of you and let you do the extra mental lifting and spiritual investigation into these ideas. So next week we will be talking about other things. Mainly, our lesson 6 is the my chief end and my choices, health and wealth. Thank you very much. This is Steve Whigham. We'll talk to you again very soon.